What is up? What is going on, everybody? Welcome back and welcome into a Seattle Seahawks video. Took every fiber of my being not to say Seattle Mariners post-game recap, but I hope you're all doing well, and we're gonna talk a little Seahawks today. Before I dive into it any further, do me a favor, smash that like button, subscribe if you're new, and comment your thoughts on the Seahawks or Mariners, whatever you want to do, down below. Mariners content is not going anywhere. Anytime a season ends, unless it ends with the world championship, in which case I'd make a video every day going, Mariners are world champs, baby, let's go. You need a couple weeks off. I just, after all the long season from spring training through October, I just needed a break from talking Mariners. But I'll be back next week. I'm taking some vacations. Already took one with the family, taking another one this week. So I still work a 9 to 5. I'm acting like I'm a player coach that needed some breaks after the season, but it was an exhausting season for the Mariners. But me and Mariners, sir, I believe we'll be back next week, and we'll have a video talking about some of John Stanton's comments, and we'll dive into what we think may happen with the Mariners this off season. And my goal is to kind of maybe every other week have a Mariners video up, and obviously if there's breaking news, we'll have something up for that. But I decided to actually make a Seahawks video today, and shout out to one of my subscribers, Mitchell Hopkins 9331. Hope you don't mind me shouting you out, but he made a comment yesterday on my community post where I was talking about Mariners content coming back next week, and he said, since you left, the Seahawks and Mariners haven't won a game. Obviously, yes, I'm aware it's a tongue-in-cheek comment, but I thought about it. I'm like, maybe if I make a Seahawks video, it'll bring some good juju for Thursday night, because the Mariners obviously haven't played since I did a video last, so they haven't won. And the Seahawks lost to Detroit and then had a very, very disappointing game against the New York Giants on Sunday. So I figured to make a video. I'm going to talk about two things. So grab some popcorn, a soda, some water, a sandwich. This could be kind of a long video. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the Mike Macdonald stuff, because it's actually surprisingly been kind of a hot topic on Twitter, Twitter X, or social media. Always best to stay away from social media. I need to be better at that as well. And nothing I'm going to say is meant to lecture anybody, by the way, because I'm guilty of things too. I make comments sometimes, I'm like, especially during a game, that I'm like, nothing like horribly wrong, but just like I should be more level-headed than that. So, I'm guilty of things too. I never want people to think I'm lecturing them on how to think. You think however you want about teams and coaches and stuff like that. It's, free world. Think how you want. But I want to talk about that. And I want to talk a little bit about, ways I think Seattle can win on Thursday night. Nothing crazy in depth. There's so many good Seahawks content creators that make videos on that, but I don't think it's just a slam dunk that Seattle loses this game Thursday night. I think San Francisco's rightfully favored, but I do think Seattle has a shot to win. So we'll dive into that a little bit. But, the Seahawks start the year 3-0, and I think we all kind of immediately fell in love with Mike Macdonald, and rightfully so. I think he's a really good hire. Smart guy, young, energetic, kind of a, I talked a little in the offseason, like, do you hire the next Shanahan McVay, or do you hire a coach that can beat Shanahan McVay? I think Seattle went with the coach that can beat Shanahan McVay. So still love the Mike Macdonald hire. Nothing here is changing that. But the Seahawks start 3-0. I'm aware of the schedule. Well aware. We all are. But listen, I don't care what team you root for. You start 3-0. You're excited about the season. Defense looked great, yes, against lesser opponents, but again, I mean, that's what you're supposed to do, right? You beat lesser opponents. There's nothing wrong with that. But the shine has come off the last couple of weeks, for sure. Now, I think the Detroit game, a little more excusable. No Nwosu, no Leonard Williams, no Byron Murphy, no Boye Mafe that game. Ben Johnson's great offensive coordinator. Dan Campbell's really good. You've kind of had the Lions' numbers, so you knew they were going to be ready for that game. Prime time at home Monday night. And honestly, if it weren't for, I think the DK fumble was a big play, and then a couple of questionable pass interference calls, I think that game might have come down to the very end. It would have been a shootout, but I think it might have been a lot closer than 42-29 indicated. But I think all of us, for the most part, had they bounced back and beat the Giants, let's say 24-7, I think we could have thrown away, or whatever score. I'm just throwing a number out there, but I think we all would have kind of forgiven and gotten over the Lions game. Lions are a good team. They're a possible Super Bowl contender. They got you at home on Monday Night Football. Not the end of the world. But now it's compounded with 2 losses. And again, some of the shine has come off from Mike Macdonald a little bit. So much to the point where, and again, maybe I'm just reading too much into things, but there seemed to be a little bit of a, I don't know if you want to call it like Team Pete versus Team Mike Macdonald a little bit, but it seems like there has been some, animosity amongst Hawks fans on social media. Again, another reason to probably just stay away from social media. And as I always say, you guys know, I say this a lot of times for the Mariners, the truth usually lies somewhere in the middle. Not all things in life are gray. There's some black and white issues in this world, but when it comes to sports, I think there's gray. I do. I'm sorry. I don't think it's always a black and white situation of clearly obvious or clearly, whatever. And that's kind of where I stand with this. Mike Macdonald is 5 games into his head coaching career, not just with the Seahawks, but in general. This isn't Mike Vrabel coming in after coaching Tennessee for a few years or Dan Quinn having head coaching experience. This is a brand new head coach. He is learning a lot on the way as well. There are going to be bumps in the road. And I think one of the reasons we were so excited with the 3-0 start is, and again, this might just be me. So, I'm not, again, that's why I said I'm not lecturing anybody. Some of this may be directed just at myself. So maybe nobody else felt this way. So be it. Maybe this is a Dear Diary moment video for me. But you watch the first 3 games and you're kind of thinking, okay, it was head coach. This team is actually pretty dang talented, and they just needed a little bit better leadership and better scheming, defensively, and more consistency on offense to be a true contender. And it looks like they're getting that. What we might be running into is it's not just that simple. This team might not quite be talented enough to be taking that leap. And it's going to take some time for Mike Macdonald to get his scheme in here, get his guys in here that he wants to run his defense, and to take the next step forward. And that's okay. That is okay. What you're looking for is consistent improvement. Now, if in week 13 they've got everybody back and everybody's healthy and they're still making the same mistakes, I'm not going to be calling for Mike Macdonald to be fired. It would take probably some scandal for me to call that in year 1, but I'll be a lot more disappointed. But right now, it's just part of the learning curve of coaching in the NFL. And I also think it's fair to look at the last couple of years and go, Pete Carroll probably wasn't as bad of a coach as some of the defensive failures showed. Essentially, it's not an easy thing to do. Mike Macdonald seeing that the last couple games, Pete Carroll saw it the last few years. Again, I stand by the hire. I think the Seahawks made the right move moving on from Pete Carroll. I'm as big a Pete Carroll fan as there is. My copy of Win Forever is sitting over here somewhere. They should build a statue of Pete Carroll outside of Lumen Field. Best coach in franchise history. It's had some good ones. Chuck Knox, Mike Holmgren, Pete Carroll. For a team that's only been around since 76, that's not a bad group of coaches right there. And Pete has been the best. He's brought home the Lombardi. But again, even if you are like Team Pete in this, how long was Pete Carroll going to keep coaching anyways? There was even some rumors he might have retired after last season. So, 2-3 more years, so even if you are kind of in that vein, I think it's fair to look at it and go, it was time. It was time to move on. That doesn't mean that we can't be, grateful and appreciative of what Pete did. It doesn't mean that I still don't think Pete was like a terrible head coach the last few years. And I think we're seeing that this year. Now, unfortunately, if it's a talent issue, that also doesn't help Pete out either, because, Pete was VP of football operations, and I'm not going to get too much into John Schneider in this video either. There's some deeper stuff to this, but, if the talent's not right, that's not exactly a glowing endorsement of Pete either. And that's not the point of the video. I'm just saying that, I'm talking more from a coaching standpoint, that it does take time. And Mike Macdonald's seeing that. And again, where does that truth lie? In the middle. Both extremes are not correct. Mike Macdonald is not a savior that's just going to come in day one, push a button, and this defense is top 5 in the NFL. It does look better. Overall, it's still, I think, by DVOA, top 15. I'm not sure where they rank in terms of yards and points right now, but they have overall been better this year. Even the Giants Sunday, not defending it, but they at least kind of held in the field goals in certain spots. It wasn't like the worst defensive performance in team history. I don't know. It wasn't good, but just saying. So, it takes time. It takes time. And Mike Macdonald is in his first season as a head coach. There's going to be some growing pains. There's going to be some moments where, he gets punched in the mouth a little bit. And when you're a D coordinator, it's a little easier because your focus is just on the defense. Mike Macdonald's only responsibility in Baltimore. And this is not meant as a knock. I love Mike Macdonald. I think they got the hire right 100%. If I go back, I would still hire Mike. I would still hire, like I was saying it, but I would still approve of the Mike Macdonald hire. But it's different when you go from a coordinator to a head coach. There's just more on your plate. Mike Macdonald can't just focus on the defense. He's got to make fourth down decisions. He's got to make. He's the buck stops with him in terms of player morale and player energy. And I was very disappointed in the energy from the players on Sunday. One thing that Pete Carroll was really good at was always the team seemed to bounce back and respond after tough performances very well. And again, that's where it goes back to truth in the middle. There are things that Pete Carroll is going to do better than Mike Macdonald. There are things that Mike Macdonald is going to do better than Pete Carroll. We've already seen some of it. The defense does look better, right? I think schematically the defense looks better. The response from a tough loss was not better. That's something Mike Macdonald's going to have to grow and get better at, and he should, and he will. Can I guarantee it? Of course not. I mean, Macdonald 5 years could be the worst head coach we've ever seen. I don't know, but the track record and just what he did in Baltimore, what he's done so far, I think has me optimistic. I still think Macdonald is 100% the right guy. One thing I will say, I don't think there's a middle ground on, and I don't even know if I've seen anybody doing this, but if you're calling for Mike Macdonald to be fired after 5 games, I think that's insane. I will call that out a little bit as being crazy. Especially when, let's be honest here, the Seahawks are in first place. If the playoffs start tomorrow, they would be in. I feel like I'm having Mariners flashbacks because that was all I clinged to for a couple months as the 10-game lead dwindled. They would be in the playoffs. But, like I said, there are going to be things that we're going to look at and go, hey, Pete was better at that than Mike Macdonald. There's going to be things in 10 years that we say that. But there's also going to be things that Mike does better than Pete. And here's the thing, and I know I'm talking about it, so I'm probably not helping this. We need to stop doing Pete versus Mike. And I'm guilty of it too. I made a comment during the game saying, oh, fire Pete, right? When the defense was getting torched. And again, I will, it's not, in the middle of a game, sometimes you say things that you kind of go, I shouldn't have said that. But we all get emotional during a game. I'm sure we've all said things we're like, yeah, that was a stupid take. But, anyways, where was I going? Yeah, we turn the kind of like Pete Carroll versus Mike Macdonald. That's not the case. Pete's not coaching next week and then Mike the following week, then Pete, then Mike, then Pete, then Mike, then Pete, then Mike. It's not what's going on. Pete Carroll's not the organization anymore. He's doing the right thing. He's not interfering. He's letting Mike Macdonald do his thing as he should do. It's not the two of them competing. They're different people. Pete's a little bit more rah-rah than Coach Macdonald is. That doesn't mean one's better or one's worse. Both can work. Pete's style worked for Pete. Mike Macdonald's style, I believe, will work for Mike Macdonald. The worst thing you can be as a head coach, a boss, any leadership position is be fake. You have to be you. Pete Carroll was Pete Carroll, and it worked. Mike Macdonald is Mike Macdonald, and I think it will work. I can't say it has because we don't know yet, but I'm pretty confident that Mike Macdonald is going to be the right guy for the job. So this is probably the last time. I mean, unless we're talking like Pete's induction to the Hall of Fame, I'm going to bring this up because it's got to stop. We can't pin these guys against each other. Again, directed at me as well. I'm not lecturing all of you. I'm guilty of this too. So again, this might be a Dear Diary type video, but they're not competing against each other. Let's talk about Mike Macdonald against Kyle Shanahan, against Sean McVay, because that's the key. That's what we need Mike Macdonald to beat if we want to get this team. That's who we need him to beat if we want this team to get to the next step. So, I just think it's something that's got to stop. Like, Pete's not coming back. He was a great coach. He should be in the Hall of Fame. I think he will be. He will definitely be in the Seahawks Hall of Fame someday. Probably not this year, but soon. I hope he raises that 12th man flag for the organization. Tremendous coach and did a ton of things right. If Mike Macdonald is as successful as Pete Carroll, we will be in for a party as Seahawks fans, and it'll be great. So, I think in general, we just need to take a deep breath. And not every loss, just as not every win means you're a Super Bowl contender, not every loss has to have some like deeper meaning to it. And here's the thing too, the margin between the really good teams and the really bad teams in the NFL, it's thin. It's not very big. Even the Panthers, I mean, they went into Vegas and beat the Raiders, a Raiders team that beat, I guess Cleveland's not that good, but they beat Baltimore. Raiders went into Baltimore and won. Carolina went on the road and beat them. If you make mistakes in this league, any team can beat you. The Seahawks losing to the Giants was not Georgia in college football losing to Alaska's Institute of Technology for Computer Software Engineers School or something. Like, that's not what this was. I mean, the Giants are an NFL team, and the Giants have some talent. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more as we get into the game preview here. But the margin for error is very thin in this league, and it's a week-to-week league. You can lose to the Giants and then beat the 49ers the next week. It is very, very possible. We've seen teams do that week in, week out. The Baltimore Ravens lose to the Raiders, beat the Bills. I know there's others in there too, and I didn't write down any games, but there's plenty where teams have lost to teams you go, what the heck? And then they bounce back and beat a pretty good team. That's because the talent margin is so thin. Even the worst team is a ridiculously talented NFL roster capable of beating anybody. And Mike Macdonald's learning that. He knows that, and he's learning that, the hard way a little bit with that loss against the Giants. You just hope that's an aberration. It's not something that becomes consistent. I think the issues the last few years with Pete was losses like that were becoming way more frequent than they had in the past. One of the reasons I think it was time. And then Pete's defense just could not slow down McVay and Shanahan for the most part. So not going to get into all that, but love Pete Carroll. Great job here, but I also fully support Mike Macdonald, and I think he is the right guy for the job. So let's get into the game on Thursday a little bit. Seahawks will be hosting the 49ers. Both teams really, really banged up here, obviously. And, the notion's kind of going to be, and I'm not, not from everybody, but I think the real quick dismissive picks you're going to see if you watch other YouTubers or prognosticators make their picks is Seahawks lost to the Giants at home. How are they going to beat the 49ers? Well, what did I just say? It's a week-to-week league. Losing to the Giants doesn't mean they can't beat the 49ers. And again, Niners are favored by 3. They are rightfully favored. I would probably, gun to my head, predict the 49ers to win this football game. But I do think there is a path to success for the Seattle Seahawks. I'll start a little bit with last week's game. This might be cope. I don't think the Giants are as bad as maybe some Seahawks fans are making them out to be. Listen, no Malik Neighbors and no Devin Singletary. It's a bad loss. I'm not going to sit here and try and cope it into, it was an okay loss. But, especially, let's talk about the Giants defense. They might have the best interior player in football in Dexter Lawrence. If not best, I don't know every guy, every team, but if you had a top 5, Dexter Lawrence is in your top 5 of interior defensive linemen. And nothing will kill an offense more than giving up interior pressure. Edge pressure can kill you too, but you can work around edge pressure a little bit. It's why Seattle missing Byron Murphy, I think, has been so key. It's another thing for Mike Macdonald, right? His defensive line has been extremely banged up. And I know some people have been like, well, you can't count Byron Murphy. He's a rookie. You can't rely on a rookie. And that's fair. In theory, that point is correct. But I do think you've seen a pretty steep decline without Byron Murphy on that defensive line. I'm not going to say Byron Murphy's their best defensive player 3 weeks in, but I do think that's been a pretty impactful miss for the Seahawks, and so is Boye Mafe. But anyways, going back to my point, when you get that interior pressure, your quarterback cannot step up into the pocket. And I also apologize for my voice being lower. It's pretty much gone, so I apologize if I'm talking a little softer. But I guess Jay's tried an ASMR, if you want to call it that. But anyways, gosh, back to my point for the third time here. Interior pressure just blows up an offense. With edge pressure, you can step up into the pocket. You can move away a little better from edge pressure. It's not to say Nick Bosa can't come in here and just wreck the Seahawks. He absolutely could. And you can line Bosa up inside and outside. Edge guys can get interior pressure. But I do think the Giants bring a little bit more interior pressure than the 49ers bring. You're not going to face a Dexter Lawrence this week. Now, Seattle's guard play has been so bad that they might be able to turn anybody into Dexter Lawrence. Laken Tomlinson is as bad as I've seen a guard play for the Seahawks. That's saying something because we've had some nasty guard play, and I don't mean nasty in a good way. Over the years, Bradford and Haynes haven't been much better, but they're at least a little younger, more athletic. I think they've shown more than Tomlinson. But anyways, my point is you're not facing a Dexter Lawrence this week. Believe it or not, I think the Giants' interior linemen actually, especially with Hargrave being out for the Niners, I think actually pose a little bit bigger threat there. Giants have some good edge players too in Burns and Thibodeau. And obviously the Niners might have the best in the league in Nick Bosa. And Nick Bosa against Stone Forsythe is going to be a very, very tough matchup. But you do have a chance to chip him a little bit with Farrell Brown and A.J. Barner and stuff like that. And Geno may have some avenues to step up into the pocket and make some plays where that just killed drives for Seattle last week, is that interior pressure. And 11 sacks from Byron Murphy for Seattle will end up being more valuable than 11 sacks from Boye Mafe. That's why Aaron Donald was considered one of the best players in football, because you can get that interior pressure. It is so much bigger. Not that edge pressure is a bad thing. Edge pressure is fantastic. But if you can get that pressure from the inside, you can really just take over a game. So I do think Seattle might actually have a little easier time in that aspect and allow Geno to step up into the pocket a little bit. Big factor last week as well, and Seattle's talked about getting this changed up this week, was only 5 carries for Kenneth Walker. Now, I will defend Ryan Grubb a little bit on that. I don't know if the game situation led to... Kenneth Walker needs more than 5 carries. There's no debate about that. I'm not going to try to argue that. But I don't think it was just, they didn't give Walker the ball. The offense had trouble getting on script or sustaining drives. They had some plays. They had some moments. They weren't atrocious. Well, I don't think they weren't good. But there were just some moments where they just never had a chance to sustain drives. And I'm kind of a believer in the pass sets up the run a little bit. I think you open up the defense with a couple passes, then you can start hitting the running plays and really wearing down a defense. And they just never got in a position to do that. I think they might have after that DK Metcalf catch, but then he fumbled, which is frustrating. Something that's got to be better, here this week for sure. But I think that's a spot where they might have started running the football a little bit more there. You've got to pick up a first down or two. I always say this about offensive coordinators. In order for them to really get into their bag of tricks and what they can really show, the players have got to pick up a first down. If they can pick up that first down, it opens things up a little bit, gets the defense a little nervous, a little back on their heels maybe. Then you can start really diving into your bag of tricks. Again, none of this is to say 5 carries from Walker is smart. That's inexcusable. He's got to touch the ball more than that. And then again, late in the game, in the fourth quarter, they're almost down 2 scores the entire fourth quarter. So you're not going to run the ball in those situations either. Now, I do think they could have ran the football a little bit on the last drive. They took that shot to Lockett, which did almost hit, and JSN dropped the pass, which was pretty brutal. But I did think they had a chance to maybe run the football a little bit there, eat up some of the clock, maybe, catch the Giants off guard a little bit, get them in some shorter second, third downs, make some plays. So again, I will reiterate, they should have ran it more, but I think some of that was game script. Now, what you don't want the team to fall into, and this was always my beef with Shane Waldron, the running and passing game never felt in sync under Shane Waldron. I have no data to back that up. It's just a feeling. It's just sometimes you watch the game and you just feel that. You guys can agree or disagree with that, but it always kind of felt like Waldron would go, oh yeah, we got to run the ball too. And then he'd just hand the ball off a few times. It's like, I don't know. It just never felt in rhythm. I always use like the 05 Seahawks as a great example. When Hasselbeck and Alexander were on their game, it was so in sync with running and passing. Or even the Seahawks, when they won the Super Bowl with Russ and Marshawn Lynch. And they just haven't gotten back there. And this year has felt a little better with Ryan Grubb, but they still have to get back to getting in that rhythm. My point is, I don't want them to just go, we have to run the ball more and just hand the ball off 20 times without even, not that they would do that, but you know what I mean? Just like, okay, now we're doing nothing but running the ball. Like, you still need to be passing the football too, but mix in some play action, get Geno to roll out, get him away from the pressure, then hit him with a run to Kenneth Walker. And I bring that up because the Niners have struggled a little bit with defending the run. They've kind of been hit or miss with it. They've had some good moments. Last week in the second half, the Cardinals started to gash them a little bit. And it sort of kind of took the Niners off guard a little bit out of their game plan. So I do think there might be some opportunities for Kenneth Walker this week. Now, the passing offense has generally been pretty good for Seattle. It really has. I think Geno's played well this year, and a couple, unfortunate fumbles for DK, but he's had a nice season. Lockett's done Lockett things. JSN's taken, I think, a step forward. The line's been atrocious, and it is a better, I think, run blocking line. And I think some of these, empty sets, 5 wide receiver sets, or empty backfield, 5 wide receiver sets have hurt the Seahawks with the pressure. And I don't know what all the answers are going to be to that. But I'm not saying, abandon the pass, because it's a good passing game. You have good weapons, use them. But they've got to, basically long-winded way here, they've got to find a way to get Kenneth Walker going. And I think this could be a game where he has some success. Another reason to be a good game to get him success is to keep the 49ers offense off the field. It's an offense that's, I think, second in terms of yards per play in the NFL. They've struggled in the red zone, but overall, they've actually been a pretty solid offense. They've just had, I think, some turnovers, and they've been a little shaky too. Overall, listen, Niners have been. I mean, we talk about Seattle last couple weeks being shaky. San Francisco's been as up and down as anybody in the league this season. I still think a very talented team, and I'd be shocked. They kind of remind me a little bit of the Astros, right? From a Mariners perspective, where they struggle early on, but I think they'll find their rhythm. I think the Niners will be fine this year. I don't know if they're going to be in the Super Bowl or not, but I do think they'll find their footing and be a pretty competitive team. But we've also seen this Niners offense just gash the Seahawks defense the last few years. Not so much always in point total, but just in yards, like no ability to get stops on this Niners offense. And best way to do that is hopefully keep them off the field. And if you can establish that running game, keep the clock moving, get first downs, that's going to play a big role in that. And, if you can get out, get a lead, put Niners behind the sticks a little bit, it does become a much more winnable game. So I think that's a key for Seattle. I think that they can, avoid interior pressure, which I think San Francisco does not have a Dexter Lawrence on their defensive line. They do have a Nick Bosa, but again, I talked about how I think edge pressure is a little bit easier to escape. Again, watch Nick Bosa just absolutely destroy Seattle. This game is very possible. I'm not saying he can't. I think that'll help, and I think if we can get that running game going, that'll be a big boost for the Seahawks offense. Defensively, it's going to be extremely tough, but this is where, this is a chance for Mike Macdonald to make kind of his first statement as Seahawks head coach. And again, if he struggles, I'm not saying that like, oh, he's a failure or anything like that. Again, it's going to take time, but this is a chance for a bit of an early season statement for Mike Macdonald. This is kind of the game he was hired for. I'm not saying he got the job solely because his Ravens beat the Niners last year, but sure, it played a role in it. I'm 100% sure it did. So this is a chance for him to kind of show that this defense has taken a step forward. Now, he may just not have the horses in this game. Another thing I was going to say with the coaching, like no matter what, every successful coach has had to have the horses. Bill Walsh, one of the best innovators of all time. He had Joe Montana, Jerry Rice. Now he played a part in developing those guys, I'm sure. But I mean, if you gave Bill Walsh me at quarterback, his numbers would not look as good. We'd also rip him apart for putting me in there because Lawrence Taylor would have broken me apart in the first play. But it's unfortunate with the injuries because Uchenna Nwosu isn't going to play. It sounds like Byron Murphy may not play. Looks like Leonard Williams will play. He did play last week. Clearly wasn't 100%. If you watch that game, he was just a non-factor. And he had been a big part of the first 3 wins for the Seahawks. So hopefully he's closer to 100%. That would be huge. Sounds like Boye Mafe might play. That would be a big boost for the Seahawks. Sending that edge in the run defense would be key. And Mafe's obviously been an exceptional pass rusher as well. Hopefully Derek Hall's in there, and we'll see with Reek Woolen. But definitely a chance Seattle shorthanded, which is very disappointing. But this is a chance for Mike Macdonald to kind of show that he is capable of slowing down this Niners offense. And listen, from a Seahawks perspective, the pressure is really on the 49ers for this game. They're the team that's expected to be the Super Bowl contender. They're the team that is in their Super Bowl window. I mean, I'm not trying to drag up poor memories for 49ers fans if you're watching, but, a couple tough Super Bowl losses, tough NFC Championship game losses. This team's goal, unless I'm crazy, is to win a Super Bowl, not to just get better. Seahawks' goal is to get better. Super Bowl will be amazing. We'll take it. We won't turn it down. But the goal is not for the Seattle Seahawks to be Super Bowl champs at the end of the year. For the 49ers, it is. The pressure is on them. If the Niners lose this game, they're 0-3 in the division. I think they're 0-4 in the NFC. By the way, 2 teams that have not had an NFC win this year. Seattle's 0-2, Niners are 0-3. And they'd be 2 games back of the Seahawks and would not have the tiebreaker at the current moment. That could change later in the year. But the pressure has got to be on them. They're the ones that, in my opinion, have to win this football game. Now, I do think if Seattle wants to win the division, they have to win this game. But I think we're still, I don't think the Seahawks are rebuilding, but still kind of in the early stages of what is this team going to be. We're still trying to find out, whereas the Niners know what they need to be. Now, I'm not saying Seattle should play like, oh, just relax yourselves and go, whatever, pressure's on them. But you need to realize that they're the ones coming in here they are more desperate than you are. The Niners are the more desperate team in this football game. So let's see if that causes some mistakes. Let's see if they play a little panicky and Seattle can take advantage. Be really nice to see a turnover. I know they did get a turnover last week against the Giants, but let's be honest. I mean, it was huge. It was a fumble return for a touchdown, 100 yards, but it was after a very disappointing drive. I'm not going to say they got lucky because I do think it was a fumble, but had that been called a touchdown, I believe it would have stood. So, fortunate that the refs let that play out and then just didn't see enough evidence to overturn it, because otherwise that would not have been a turnover. And it wasn't, if ifs and buts were candies and nuts, but still, I want to see I want to see Purdy throw an interception. I want to see Spoon get his hand on the ball, Reek if he plays, Jenkins, Love, whoever it is. I want to see his team confuse the quarterback a little bit. That was what was so disappointing last week, is that Daniel Jones just didn't look confused, and that's kind of been a hallmark of a Mike Macdonald defense. And we didn't see that last week. So a chance for Mike Macdonald to make a bit of a statement on the field. Also a chance for him to make a bit of a statement, I guess it'd be on the field as well, but kind of from a morale standpoint, because I did not like how the team responded. I want to be clear, too, with everything I said earlier. You have every right to criticize Mike Macdonald for the last two games. He's not exempt from criticism because it's his first year. I want to be clear on that, too. I did not like the bounce back from the team. I said that earlier in the video. One thing that Pete Carroll's teams could always hang their hats on, where they would normally, not all the time, but they'd bounce back pretty well from a tough loss with a statement win. Again, here I am saying, don't compare the two, and what am I doing? I'm comparing it. So again, so I said, maybe it's all directed at me. But a chance to kind of change that, too, for Mike Macdonald. Two tough effort games in a row from the Seahawks. Now, they did almost still pull it out last week, but let's see the team respond a little bit. I want to see a little energy, a little emotion, a little bit more than we saw last week. Last week, the team looked flat. Maybe it was a short rest. I mean, it's short rest again this week. I will say, I don't think the schedule makers did Seattle really any favors. The Giants had 10 days off for that game. Seattle had to play Monday, then play Sunday, and had another game Thursday. Again, obviously, I understand teams are going to play Thursday. Seattle's going to play Atlanta next week with multiple rest. But Atlanta doesn't play Monday night and then play Seattle on Sunday, and they don't have a game the next Thursday. So I do wonder if that factored in a little bit. Not an excuse. Seattle still should have played better and won that game. But I do think that was kind of a weird scheduling quirk from the NFL. Obviously, here both teams coming off brutal losses for Seattle and San Francisco, both playing on short rest. But yeah, I think a chance to kind of change that as well. Get this team going, get the morale up a little bit as well. So a chance to make a statement as a defensive mind and as a leader of this team. I guess that's kind of the way I'm going with it for Mike Macdonald here. So a big opportunity for him on the national stage here. So let's see what he can do. I'm actually, listen, like I said, Niners are favored and rightfully so. I don't think it's a slam dunk that the Niners just come in here and win this game. I'm not saying it to talk trash. I'm not a trash talker. I don't play for the team. I have no bearing on the results. I think adults that talk trash to each other is kind of weird. I'm all for good banter, but I think that's kind of odd when grown men and women do that. But I think there's a chance for Seattle to win this football game. I really do. I think that this is a Niners team that is scuffling, and that could be a good thing for them. They could play hair on fire, a little desperation, come out and kick some butt. Or they could be a little tense, a little nervous here. And, you got the Seahawks throwbacks. Throwbacks are worth a point. We'll see. And, I think there's a chance. I think Geno's playing good ball this year. I think Kenneth Walker has looked good when he's gotten going. They just need to get that going. I'll again reiterate, I think if DK doesn't have the 2 fumbles the last 2 weeks, I think both those games are a lot. In fact, I'd actually say they probably beat the Giants because I think they would have scored on that drive. And I don't know. We've been curious to see what happened from that on out. I think the Lions game would have been a lot closer. I don't think DK is going to fumble 3 weeks in a row. Now, I also don't think you're going to get a 102-yard fumble return for a touchdown this week either. But if you can avoid turning the ball over, if you can get Purdy to throw a couple picks, I do think it's a winnable game. I 100% do. 3-point spread is not. Vegas does not think Seattle's going to get destroyed by San Francisco here. They're predicting a close game. When it's a close game, one fumble bounces your way, and that could be the turning point. So, maybe, like I said, Purdy throws interception, Geno doesn't. That could be your difference in this one. So I do think it is a possible win. I think Mike Macdonald, you saw last year, Mike Macdonald's Ravens defense gave San Francisco a lot of fits and turned them over a few times. Now, Purdy said they watched film on the game and they see a lot of similarities between Baltimore's defense last year and Seattle's this year. So who knows, maybe they'll come out humming and they know what to do, or maybe Macdonald's defense has a little something on Shanahan. So we'll see, but I do think it is a winnable game. I'd like if Seattle had a little more horses out there, but it is what it is. San Francisco is going to be missing, Hargrave's out, Hufanga's out. I know they're missing other guys, so I apologize for not getting all the names, for the Niners, but guys like Eric Armstead are gone, and others. Well, I think Javarius Ward is questionable. I'm not sure on that. So, the Niners have more guys on IR. Gross Matos is out. I mean, they've got more guys on IR than anybody. So it's a banged up Niners team as well coming in here. So you're not going to get any excuses from them about this. About the Seahawks won't get excuses from them on their own injuries. So go out there and win a football game, which I think they can do. I really do. I think this is it's a much more winnable game than I think a lot of fans are giving the Hawks credit for. So we'll see. Again, my gut would probably lean the Niners win a close one here. I do think they're just still a little bit more polished football team than the Seahawks, but I do think it's winnable. So I just want to make this video. I don't know how many more Seahawks videos I'll have up just when I feel like it, but just want to talk about that a little bit, just get my thoughts out on the table about it and where I'm kind of at with everything. So I'm full behind Mike Macdonald. I think he's the right guy for the job, and let's see what they can do Thursday. Hopefully nice win. Then 10 days to celebrate it would be nice too. So let's see what happens. So as always, go Mariners, go Hawks, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys all next week for some Mariners chat. Peace.